Hello, my name is Marcello Bacchecchi with 3S Shooting Sports Software. Today I'm going to show you how to set up a tournament using Shoot Pro. The way that this video is going to be structured is it's going to be one long video covering every step in the setup process, and then in the video description below, each step will be broken down into different time codes. So if you need to skip ahead to a certain section, look down in the description and click on the time code for the section that you are interested in learning about. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to download the cheat sheet. So after you're logged into the 3S website, go to the Downloads tab, and then scroll down to Public Downloads and select Additional Resources. Underneath the cheat sheet section, you'll see Tournament Setup. Click on that, and then you can go ahead and just print that out by clicking the Print button and then saying Print. So this is going to be broken down into a few major sections. The first one is going to be setting up the tournament, setting up the fees, setting up the options, setting up the payoff rounding, the special classes, the high overall and high all around. We'll provide a link to how to load the ATA or PITA PC master file, adding in your Handicapper's IDs, setting up your miscellaneous items, and downloading Presquad. So, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is open up our Shoot program. This is often what we refer to as the cashiering Bible. So, the first thing that we need to do in 3S is go to the Setup menu and then go to number 1, Tournament. And then, starting at the very beginning, we're going to input the club number. And that is going to be the ATA or PITA designated number for this club. So in my case, it is 520000, and then the next thing that we're going to do is input our tournament name. Now, over here, you can see that the tournament name is the 2019 Utah State Trap Shoot, but we're going to just simplify that to 2019 Utah State Shoot. And then the next thing that we need to do is we need to find out how many events we have in total. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to the bottom of the program. And here I can see that we have a total of 12 events. So I want to set the total number of events to 12. And then scroll back up to the top. And please note that for this tutorial, I have stripped out quite a few pages from the manual, information that we didn't necessarily need, and then there's also this big block of text here, and I pulled out the important information that we needed from this into this blue section down here. So now that we have our total number of events set up, the first thing that we need to do is get the names of each of the events. And so if we look back at our tournament setup, we need to get the tournament name and club number. So we've completed both of those. Now we need to set up the events. So our first event is going to be the veteran team, or it could also be the Joe Sudbury preliminary doubles, and that's what I want to name it. And so this is a 100 target event, so I'm going to set the targets to 100, and it is a doubles event. And then I need to set the date, and so these events are going to happen on June 18th, 2019. So I'll come down here to this drop down box, go back to June, set it up to be June 18th, and then our second event is going to be the James Patton Handicap, which is also 100 targets. So Patton. And that also takes place on 6/18. Our third event is going to be the right preliminary singles. And that is once again a singles event with 100 targets. And again, that takes place on June 18th. So now we'll go down to event 4, which is going to be the USTA doubles. So event 4, USTA doubles, and that is a 100 target event. And that actually takes place on June 19th. So I'm going to go ahead and update the date down here. Then we have our event number 5, which is the Sloan Handicap, which is 100 targets. And once again, that also takes place on June 19th. So we have that all set up correctly. Event 6 is going to be the men's team. Actually, no, that's going to be the Johnson singles. And that's going to be 100 targets. And that is going to take place on June 20th. So I'm going to go ahead and update this to be June 20th. And then event 7 is the Holly Handicap, which is 100 targets. Same thing with the Johnson singles. And that also takes place on 6/20. Jumping down to event number 8 is going to be the All-American Doubles Championship. Once again, 100 targets, 8th, and that's going to take place on June 21st. So that's going to be the All-American Doubles Championship. That's going to be doubles. That's 100 targets. And that takes place on the 21st. So we'll update the event date. Event 9 is going to be once again the Holly Handicap, 100 targets. And so we're going to change that to Sean Holly Handicap. Or we could also rename it to be HAA Holly Handicap. And so Handicap, 100 targets, takes place on the 21st. And now jumping down to event 10, that's going to be the Sloan Singles Championship, 200 targets. So Sloan Singles Championship, 200 targets for event 10. And that actually takes place on June 22nd. So we'll set that to be 6/22. And it looks like that's going to be the only event for that day. And then down here for event 11, that is going to be the Holly Doubles Championship. And it's going to be doubles, 100 targets. And that is going to take place on June 23rd. So that's the doubles championship. June 23rd, and then the final event, which is the Holly Handicap Championship. And so that's going to be handicap, 100 targets, and that'll take place on June 23rd. So now we have all of our events named and set up. As you can see, everything is correct, which we'll double check here in just a minute. And so while we're still on the screen, we need to worry about, are there going to be any target requirements? And indeed there are. There's the target requirement penalty right here. So we are looking for shooters who shot 500 targets in singles. So we're going to set singles down to 500 targets, and that is going to be current and previous year. So we'll set it to past 2 years. And then for handicap, it's 500 handicap targets, and that is once again going to be current and previous years, so we can leave that alone and just decrease the handicap targets to 500, and 500 doubles targets. And anybody, so our handicappers need to know, let me change colors real quick. Our handicappers need to know that if they do not meet these target requirements, they need to be placed at Class B for both singles and doubles, and the 23-yard line if they don't have enough requirement or enough targets for handicap. And there's also the option for the shooter to go into targets only right here. And if they're shooting targets only, that means that they don't qualify for any trophies, added money, payoffs, anything. They're blocked out from winning anything. So we have our target requirements set up. Now we're also down here, it says that cross-registration for the PITA will be allowed. So we need to turn cross-register targets to on. And let's see, is there anything else that we need to worry about here? 2-yard difference for post to post, which we have right here, and these ATA standard rules for yardage separation on squads, which is 3 yards. So our yardage separation is correct. Now, there is one thing that we need to do here, and that is to increase the maximum number of squads. Right now it is set to 20 squads, which means that in squatting you'll only see 20 squads. For a state shoot, you're going to need a lot more squads, so I'm going to go ahead and bump that up to 75 squads. And later on, if we need more squads, we can open up those squads. Go through the setup one more time, make sure that we're printing 2 receipts, which is highly recommended, especially for a state shoot. This way, if anything goes wrong, you have a second copy. My report copies is set to 2, which means that when I print out the options, it's going to print out a copy to post and a copy for the book. If you are a cashier, sometimes you will need to print 3 copies, 1 for your book, 1 for the club's book, and 1 to post. Typically, leave that at 2. Let's see, is there anything else that we need to worry about on this screen? Our handicapping flag is turned on, which is exactly what we need. This is going to ensure that somebody cannot go directly to squatting without classifying first. And for a shoot this size, you could also require the social security number. What this will do is at classification, the shooters are required to give you their social security number and put it into the system. If they do not, they are blocked from playing options and they're blocked out from added money. This can be especially useful when you're trying to hunt down people at the end of the year and make sure that everybody's provided you with a 1099. Instead of having to hunt people down during the shoot or to block them from getting their payouts until they send you the 1099 or W-9, you can just require the social security number right from the beginning. Also, this is an ATA shoot, so I have selected the ATA shoot radio button down here. Alright, so that's all there is for the first step in the tournament setup. So let's go back to our checklist down here. And we have set up our events. We have set up our target requirements. Oh, see right here we forgot to do our yardage groups. However, we did set up our shoot type and our cross registration. So we're going to go back to our program. And we are going to find out what our yardage groups are. So if we scroll down to the second page, here's our classification and trophies section, and here are our handicap yardages. So we have 4 groups. So over here on the setup screen, we're going to set our yardage groups up to 4. We're going to start out at the 19-yard line and go to the 21.5. Our second group is going to be from the 22-yard line to the 24.5. Our third is the 25th to 26.5. And then our last group is going to be our 27-yard line shooters. Now we can come back to our tournament setup checklist. And I'm going to go ahead and erase that. We're going to go ahead and highlight that. So we've set up our yardage groups, we set up the tournament name, club information, events, target requirements, yardage groups, shoot types, and cross-registration. So this section here is complete. So now we can go ahead and close out of tournament setup. And then you're going to get this notice when you close out that says any changes to the setup table are not active unless the system is restarted. Click OK and restart 3S. Alright, so now let's get into the second step in setting up a shoot. Let's set up the shooter fees. So I'm going to go to the setup menus and then go to number 2, fees. And then I'm going to return to the shoot program. And so let's find out what our daily fees are. So looking around, all shooters will be charged a USTA daily fee of $3 and an ATA daily fee of $3. So that means that our total daily fee is going to be $6. So here where it says daily fee, I'm going to set that to $6. And three of that is going to the USTA. So $3 to the USTA and $3 to the ATA. And then here it says that an additional $1 will be charged per 100 targets. So where we would set that up at is underneath the other fee, and there is $1 per 100 targets. So the second thing that really stands out to me here is a cross-registration with the PITA is allowed. So the program is going to specify that there is a daily fee associated with the cross-registration. So there's an $8 daily fee, and 5 of that goes to the PITA and 3 of that goes to the USTA. So here underneath cross-register daily fees, I'm going to set the second organization fee to $8 and $3 of that is going to the USTA. And then back here it says an additional $1 will be charged per 100 targets. So whenever you see a per 100 targets, that is going to go underneath the other fee. So I have set it up now where we are charging $8 a day for cross-registration, $5 of that is going to the PITA, and $3 of that is going to the USTA. So that part there is complete. So now what we need to do is we need to set up our pre-squatting fee. And where we would set that up at is right here, pre-squad fee, that is $2. And then while we're at it, let's also set up our national organization fees. So for the ATA, the membership is $20, and for an AIM member, it is $13. And then we have that pre-squatting fee of $2 that we already input. So let's go ahead and cross that off our list. And then we have already set up our yardage rules in the first part of the tournament setup, so we're good there. So now what we need to do is we need to figure out our day splits. So if we scroll down to the first page for Tuesday, June 18th, I can see that we have 3 events. We have events 1, 2, and 3. So our starting event, or our first event of day 1, is going to be 1, and our last event is going to be 3. Then down here, for June 19th, we have only 2 events. We have events 4 and 5. So here for the first event of day 2 is going to be event 4, and the last event is going to be event 5. Then for June 20th, we're going to have event 6, as our first event and event 7 as our last event. And then for the 21st, we have events 8 and 9. So we'll set up events 8 and 9. And then for our 5th day, we're going to have only the one event. So we're going to have just event 10, which is the 200 singles on our Saturday. So we're going to set that up as event 10 as our first event and as our last event. And then for Sunday, we're going to have events 11 and 12. Oof. So 11 and 12. So those are our last events. So from here, we need to set up our credit card settings. So because we're accepting credit cards, we need to specify that if a shooter is going to pay with a credit card, we are going to charge a 4% fee on top of their registration fees. And we're in a state that doesn't charge tax for trap shooting, or it's built in to the target price, but we could also additionally charge sales tax. So if we were to select yes, we would specify how much sales tax we would charge for targets and how much sales tax we would charge on the daily fee. We're going to leave both of those at 0 for today. And the last thing that we need to set up is the second organization membership fee. And that is going to be $20 if they want to join the PITA. Now, let's say that our state organization didn't make their money off of just state fees, but they also required that we pay an annual fee, just like we do with the ATA. What we could do is we could select this Use State Fee checkbox, and then we could set the state to be the state that we're in, and the cost it is to renew your state membership. So, for example, in Utah there is none, but in Colorado there is, and that is a $20 fee. So we could set that up as Colorado and $20. However, like I said, because we're in Utah, we do not need to worry about that. So I'm going to uncheck the Use State Fee box. And it looks like we have met all of the requirements for the daily fees. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this, and then we'll move back to our tournament setup checklist. So we've set up our total daily fee, our state fee, our day splits, our membership fees, our national organization address, which was already pre-filled, just like our state organization's address was already pre-filled, and we did not have to worry about sales tax, so I'm going to go ahead and strike that through. Alright, so we're complete with the second step, which is setting up the fees. Alright, so back in our setup checklist, it is now time to set up our target fees and our options. So I'm going to go to Setup menu number 3, Target Fees and Options. Now here we have two choices. We can either do Event Setup or Baseline Setup. Event Setup is an event by event where you would set up the target price, the daily fee, the target price, and the options. Whereas the Baseline Setup will set up your singles, doubles, and handicap, and then in the event setup you can just borrow the same options and target price for that event type. So first off, let's review our program and even make sure that it's able to work with the baseline setup. So looking at our first doubles event, we're going to have a $36 target price. We're going to have a purse, a 50s option, and a Lewis. Let's go ahead and look at the next doubles. So we have $36 fee, purse, 50s, and Lewis. For the last doubles, we have, or second to last doubles, we have a $36 fee, a purse, a 50s, and a Lewis. And then for the final doubles, we have $36, purse, 50s, and Lewis. So we can use the baseline for doubles. Let's double check on singles. So starting with our preliminary day, our singles $36 fee, purse 50s and Lewis. Purse 50s and Lewis for this singles, so that one will work. Handicap. This is our 200 target, so we will redo this regardless of the baseline setup. So it looks like for our singles, we can use baseline for singles as well. And handicap, purse 6-way Lewis 50s, $36. Purse 6-way Lewis 50s, purse 6-way Lewis and 50s, purse 6-way Lewis and 50s. Here we have a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that in a different color. So I'm going to grab my highlighter and highlight that in red. So that way later on when I'm doing my event setup, I'll notice that there's a difference there. And once again, I'm going to highlight both of these in red. Oof, that was a beautiful job. Okay, so I took a quick moment to go ahead and clean up my highlighting on this document just to make things a little bit easier to follow along with. So the first thing that we're going to do in 3S to begin setting up our events is I'm going to go to Setup menu, number 3, Target Fees and Options. And then because everything's compatible with the baseline setup, I'm going to go ahead and select baseline. And we're going to start out with our singles event. So our first singles event is going to have a purse that is going to be 2 places. So the number of percentages that are next to the name of the option is going to be the number of places. So if it's 60-40, it's 2 places. If it's 50-30-20-10, then that's 4 places. And then right here it is going to be $15 to play the purse. So I'm going to set the amount to $15. And so let's move on down to our 50s option. So I'm going to call that the 50s. And that is going to be a $10 option. And that is going to be 2 places. Now, you'll notice here where it says $5, each 50, and then in parentheses 2. This is going to be very important later on when you're running the option. Pretty much the golden standard for 50s is it's always going to be $5 each. So if the option price is going to be $10, then it is going to be 2 50s, but if it's 15, then it's 3 50s. Just keep that in mind when you're running options later on. And I'm sure at some point we will have a full video covering how to run the options. And so next up is going to be the Lewis. Let me switch tools real quick. So the Lewis, and make sure to spell that L-E-W-I-S. This way in cashiering, when a shooter says that they want to play all of the Lewis options, there's a checkbox down at the bottom that says check all Lewis options. If the option is spelled out L-E-W-I-S, it'll be selected automatically. But if you shorten it to L-W-S or anything other than L-E-W-I-S, then it will not be selected automatically. This is going to be a $15 option, but the Lewis is a little bit weird. So instead of putting in the number of places, so 60-40, what you're going to input instead is going to be the 3 classes. So for Lewis's, you always input the number of classes, not the number of places. So this is going to be a Lewis 15, and it's going to be 3 places. And so that's all the options that we will have for our singles events. So now let's move on up, and this is going to be our doubles events. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up the highlighting that I just did. So let's move on up to our doubles event. So our target price is going to be $36. And while I'm thinking of it, let me just double check that I set that up. Alright, I already did. So our first option is going to be our purse, which is going to cost $15 to enter, and that is 2 places. Then we're going to have our 50s option, which is going to be a $10 entry, and it is going to be 60/40. So $10 to enter, 2 places. And then once again, $5 each 50. Remember that for when you're actually running the option. And then we are going to have a Lewis. That is going to be a $15 entry. Now remember what I just told you about the Lewis class. We are not going to use the 60/40. Instead, we are going to use the 3 classes in the places box. And now, finally, let's move on up to handicap. I'm going to just clear out all of the highlighting I just did. And our handicap. So with this, it's $36 target price, $36 for the target price. We're going to have a purse that is going to be $15 and 2 places. So purse, 2 places, $15. Then we're going to have the 6-way, which is we don't have to specify the number of places. So that is going to be 15 places, and then we're just going to leave places at 1. Next we have the Lewis, 3 classes, and we ignore the percentages here. So Lewis, $15 entry, 3 classes, and then we have our 50s, 2 places, $15. So our 50s, that's going to be a $15 entry, 2 places, and so now we have set up our entire baseline. Our singles, doubles, and handicap are all pretty much set up for us, except for the few other places that I've highlighted in the Shoot program. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of the baseline setup, and while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and clear out all of the highlighting I just did. And let's go into Setup menu, Target Fees and Options, and now we're going to go to the Event Setup. And so we're going to just click the Borrow button, and that matches our event perfectly. So we're going to move on up to the next event. We're going to click Borrow. Once again, that matches our event perfectly. We're going to go up to the 3rd event, which is going to be our singles. That matches our event perfectly. Now we're going to jump down to event 4, which is a doubles. And once again, we're spot on. Event 5, everything matches up. Event 6, click Borrow. Everything matches up again. Event 7, we're going to click Borrow. Everything matches up again. And now on event 8, Borrow. We're good there. And event 9, here we have something a little different. So I've already highlighted that with my red highlighter. So what we're going to do is it says to see event 12. And let me set that back to my red highlighter. So I'm going to scroll on down to event 12 and see what is special about this Hall of Fame Contributor Award. And there's not much information. So this is one of those instances where the program doesn't clearly say what this option is doing. So we're going to put it in as just what it's named as in the book and the price that it is set at, which is $15. And then when it comes time to run the option, we'll talk to the club and figure out what exactly this is doing. Probably a good discussion to have beforehand, to be completely honest. So this is going to be Utah Hall of Fame award, and that is going to be a $15 option. I'm going to leave that at 1%. So depending upon what the deal is with this option, we can always manually override the places later on when we're running the option, or if we're just pulling a report to hand them a list of everybody who played this option and let them figure it out. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this note here because we are spot on for event 9. And then here is the important event of the entire tournament, which is going to be event 10. I'm going to click borrow, but because this is the 200 targets event, it is going to be a $72 target fee. So I'm going to set that to $72. And now all of the options are going to be 15. And this also has the 1,000 bird race for the Utah teams. So this is an option that's going to have to be run by hand. Basically how this would work is you would build teams using the teams program in the system, and then you would pull a trophy report for that team across multiple events. And so that would go from, let's see, event 10. So that would go from I believe the first event on, but don't quote me on that. So that is something that we don't need to worry about when we're setting up our options, but it is something that we need to keep in mind for when we are running the system later on. And so here I'm noticing that we only have our purse, our Lewis, and 100 options. So we don't have a 50s option. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that out. And I'm going to move this Lewis. Oops. I'm going to move that Lewis up. That's $15, 3 places. And then this 100 option on the total 100 is going to be a high gun. Oops. That is going to be a high gun purse divided among 2 places, and the entry fee for that is $15. So that's just going to be a high gun purse. And the other thing is that this event has added money in it. So I'm going to put down that there is $1,500 in added money, and that's going to be 3 places. Now the important thing to note about the added money option down here is that this is only meant to be a reminder. This won't automatically run your added money for you. So when you print your cheat sheets, it will just come up with a reminder saying that you have added money in this event. Very important that you put this in here and print out your cheat sheets at the end, so that way you stay spot on with the program. So, moving on to event 11, we borrow that 36, 15, 10, 15, purse 50s, Lewis, we're spot on. Another $1,500 in added money, so I'm going to put that down here. And now for the final event, when we borrow this one, we can see that we have those 2 options that we weren't quite sure about earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in as Utah and ATA Championship, and that's going to be $15. And once again, we have $1,500 in added money, and then this is the Utah Hall of Fame Award. 15, and it doesn't tell us how many places. That's the ATA Hall of Fame Award. And I even have enough space in between ATA and Hall of Fame, and that's another $15, 1 place. Alright, so we have our event setups complete. So let's go back to our tournament setup checklist. And so we've set up our target fee, our options, and our added money. Now I have put in these event numbers here to remind me to go back through and verify our event setup. And so how you would do that is you would go to your shoot program, and I'm going to erase all of my highlighting. And now you're going to go to Setup menu, number 8, Print Cheat Sheets, and then select Just Setup Information. Now typically I would print this out and have a highlighter and I'd go back and forth in between the two. So just for example, real quick, I'm going to check that the target price for the first event is $36. I have a purse at 15, a 50s option at 10, a Lewis at 15. Now notice how this document doesn't have the places printed out. The reason for that is that when you are running these options, you can always manually override the number of places or classes that it's going to generate the payoffs from. So it is the cashier's responsibility to always run the options against what is printed directly in the program. If they have any questions, you need to go talk to the club or somebody else who's going to know what was meant in the program. I've seen some programs that are so confusing you have no idea how many places that they're trying to pay for their purse or their Lewis. So you would continue this step by step. So event 2, 100 targets. It's a handicap, $36, takes place on 6/18. I have a purse, a 6-way, a Lewis, and a 50s. That's all good, and $36 target price, we're good. So I'm going to go through and come back in just a minute after I've gone through and verified all of my events. Alright, so I've gone ahead and verified all of my events. Everything looks correct. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my checklist, and then for each one of these event numbers, I'm going to cross them out. And so now we are complete with the target fees and options setup. Alright, with a little magic editing, I've gone ahead and changed the highlighting color on this, so that way it all matches. So this fourth step, the fourth step that we need to take is we need to set up our payoff rounding. So I'm going to go to Setup menu number 4 into the payoff rounding, and here, as the cashier, we get to say how much we want to round. We can either pay to the penny, or we can round to the nearest dime, quarter, half dollar, or dollar. Personally, I always round to either the nearest dollar or the nearest half dollar, especially if I'm paying out with cash. If I'm paying out with cash during a tournament, I will always select pay down to the dollar, because I very rarely will have quarters. Or I'll say round down to the nearest quarter if I have quarters. This is more of just a convenience factor. That's a decision that's up to you and the club on how you want to round. Personally, I always suggest round down to the half dollar or round down to the dollar. So I'm going to leave that at round down to the dollar and click close. And we can go ahead and check that off our list, and we are ready for the 5th step. Alright, so here we are. We're ready to set up our special classes. So let's go back to the shoot program. And here, where it says special categories, we're going to follow the setup. So here, we're going to have Lady 1, Lady 2, Sub-Vet, Vet, Senior Vet, Sub-Junior, Junior, Junior Gold, and it looks like we're not going to have a chair shooter, or a chair category. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to 3S, we're going to go to Setup menu number 5, Special Classes, and we are going to set the display status to yes for all of our categories except for chair. We're going to leave chair as set to no because we are not providing any chair trophies. Okay, so once again, we're going to look through the program and see if we are going to be giving our juniors and sub-juniors a discount. And if I look through here, okay, so right here, our program specifies that sub-juniors and juniors are going to get half-price targets for targets only. If the junior plays an option in the entire tournament, they are to pay full price for targets. So, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come over here to the target fee, and we're going to single out our juniors and sub-juniors, and we're going to set the target fee for both of them to be Y, and then half of $36 is 18. And let me just double check that. All right. So our juniors and sub-juniors will pay $18, and then underneath this can ops column, we're going to set that to no, or N. And what this is going to do is it's going to make sure that if the junior plays an option, that they will get bumped up to pay full price for their targets. And then both of these will also have a discounted membership from the ATA or PITA. So we'll set both of those to be 13. And that's all it takes for our special classes. However, because the program specifies this line here, if the junior plays an option in the entire tournament, they are to pay full price for targets. So we need to go back into our tournament setup and check down here that the discounted targets apply to the whole shoot. Now, if it were to specify that it is on a per event basis or not specify that it is across the entire event, then we would select per event. However, in this case, we are applying it to the entire shoot, so we'll select whole shoot. And we'll go ahead and close that. Once again, 3S will need to restart. And so let's go back to our tournament setup checklist, and we have set up the classes to be used in the tournament, and we have set our unused classes, or categories I should say, the display status to no. Now there is one very important thing to note, and that is the single character designator that's provided by the ATA must be filled out. If you do not fill this out, the ATA will reject your scores and send it back to you, letting you know that you need to redo your special classes setup. And then you have to resubmit the scores, or they'll contact us, and then it slows everybody down much further because then we have to get in contact with you, get the backup from you, rerun all of your special categories and all of your reports that you send into the ATA, and resend them into the ATA for you. So please make sure to read page 21 in the manual and make sure that you have your single character designators from the ATA set up in this first column that match with the categories. So for example, Lady 1, the single character designator is W. For Junior Gold, it's G. For Senior Vet, it's T. Chair, C, so on and so forth. So please read page 21 in the manual. Alright, so now we are complete with our special classes set up. So let's go ahead and move along to HOA and HAA. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our shoot program. And let's look for our high overall and high all around specifications. Alright, so after going through the program, I'm not seeing anywhere where it is specifically specifying the number of, or the event numbers for our high overall and our high all around. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the setup menu, number 6, HOA and HAA, And because it is not directly specified, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that the high overall is going to be all of the events except for our preliminary events, and our high all around are going to be all of our championship events. So events 8, 10, 11, and 12. Actually, let's double check for event 8, because that's probably not a doubles championship. I don't believe that that is an actual championship event, so I'm just going to leave it for the last 3, events 10, 11, and 12, because I know for sure that those are the championship events for this tournament. Typically, high overall is going to be everything besides the preliminary day, and high all around will be the last 3 events. However, because it's not directly specified in the manual or in the program, once again, I'm going to go ahead and talk to the club and find out what they have to say about what their high overall and high all around is. If there's something not directly specified in the manual, always go and talk to the club. So now that we know that our high overall and high all around is correct theoretically, I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And so let's go back to our checklist, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight that we have selected our events for HOA and we have selected our events for HAA. So that's good. Now for loading the PC Master update, I'm going to go ahead and say that that is complete. This is something that we already have another support video on, so please look down in the video description below. There is going to be a link to a video describing how to load the ATA and PITA PC Master. So I'm going to go ahead and just check this off real quick. And now what we get to do is we get to add our handicapping IDs. So switching back over to the program, I'm going to go back to that first page and scroll down a little bit more. So in the non-redacted or non-modified state shoot program on page 3, here we can see that our handicap committee is going to be Ed and Joe Sudbury. So those should be the only people who are going to be classifying in our event. So I'm going to go to setup menu number 11, add handicapping IDs. I'm going to go ahead and remove everybody who's already in there. And then I'm going to set up Ed Winking, EW, and then I'm going to set up Joe Sudbury, JS. So the way that this program works here is you would type in the classifier's name and initials and then click Add. So that way when we come to classification, either one of those people can select their name from the list, and then they are the classifier who is responsible. So if they make a mistake on a shooter and they come back in, you can go talk to whoever classified that shooter and find out if it was a classification mistake or if it is the shooter's fault. That comes in handy very often, especially at state shoots, so I'd highly suggest that you use that feature, especially for large shoots. And in the copy of the program that I'm going to be distributing, on the link description below, I will have this handicap committee either on the first or second page. It depends on where I can fit that in. So that's it for setting up our handicapper IDs. So we're going to go back to our tournament setup checklist, and I'm going to strike out the adding handicapper IDs, and then it's time to move on to setting up miscellaneous items. Alright, so up next let's set up our miscellaneous items. Now once again, I have a full tutorial on the miscellaneous items portion of the program. Basically what it allows you to do is sell items such as ice, dinner tickets, raffle tickets, hats, t-shirts, practice tickets, really whatever you'd like through 3S without it directly affecting your tournament finance because it's stored in a separate location. But real quick, I'm just going to show you how to add in items into miscellaneous sales. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Setup menu, number 12, Miscellaneous Items Setup. And then I'm going to click the Add button, and then I'll put in the name of whatever we are selling. So practice ticket 25 shots. And I'm just going to copy that over for the description. Set the item price to $5, and then let's say that there's a 10 shot practice ticket, same thing, update that to 10, and that's $1. And let's say that we're also doing dinner tickets. I can say that I want to track tickets and that we're printing tickets, and that is going to be a steak dinner. That's Friday steak dinner, and that's a $10 item. And then I'll click update, and that's all it takes to set up your miscellaneous items. Once again, I suggest that you watch the full video on how to set up your miscellaneous items. So going back to our checklist, I'm going to go ahead and cross that off. Okay, so now it's time to set up our Presquad data. Now, once again, I have another full tutorial on how to download Presquad data, so I'm just going to go ahead and mark that part as completed, but I'm going to show you how to import your Presquad data into 3S. So you're going to go to the File menu, and then you're going to go to number 12 Presquad. Move that down a bit. And you're going to say import 3S flat file, and you're going to say load presquad.com flat file. So you're going to click run, and then you're going to navigate to where you've saved it to. I put it in my 3S directory, and so then I'll find 3S flat file. Go ahead and open that up, and then here it's loading in all of your event data. So this will take just a moment, and it says Presquad flat file has been transferred to squatting tables. So we are complete. So I can go ahead and click OK, and if I pull up squatting, I can see all of my squads have been imported. So I'm going to go ahead and mark load Presquad data off, and then the last thing that we get to do is do a backup. So this is another one of those where I have a full tutorial. So pretty simply, I'm going to glaze over it. You're going to go to the File menu. You're going to go to Backup Tournament. Then you're going to select the 3 little dots following the red arrow. That's going to ask you where you want to save your backup to. Typically, I save it to a thumb drive and then copy it over to my local drive. So I'm going to go to my 3S folder. Here I have a backups folder. I'm going to create a new folder for Utah State 2019. And then I'm going to give the backup a name down here, which is going to be Utah Events Setup Backup. And then I'm going to click the Save button, follow the red arrow, and click Backup Now. And now my entire shoot has been backed up. So if I want, I can move this to a different computer, or if this computer crashes, at least I have my baseline set up. And I can transfer my server over to another computer and get started from there. Okay, so let's talk about my sanity check. What I like to do is go back to my program, and for a shoot this size, what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate how much it's going to be to shoot the preliminary with all of the events. And then same thing for the last 2 events. So for the 200 singles event in this case, and our doubles and handicap championship. So I'm going to go ahead and do the calculation, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so I've gone ahead and calculated the price for a regular person to come shoot the first 3 events. And then the junior, however, I do realize that I forgot to add the daily fees into the junior price. So realistically, that would actually be $60, not $54. And probably, let's see, yeah, that would not be $72. Instead, that would be 80, let's see, 72 plus 12. Okay, 84. I was off by $1 in my head. Alright, so we know that's going to be 84 and 60 for juniors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Classify, Squad, and Enter. I'm going to classify my father and click Done. It's going to ask me to confirm the classification. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to proceed. I'm going to squat him on 2 post 2 for the first 3 events and the last 2. I'm going to squat him on, let's do squad 100. So I'm going to squat him on squad 100 for the remaining 2 events. So then I'm going to click proceed, pull him up, add him into the chute just like normal, click edit, and I'm going to select pay all. So I'm going to uncheck the last 3 events, check all options. So I came out to $257. So I'm $3 off. So somewhere in my setup, I know that something is not correct, or I added everything wrong. Okay, so after looking around for a bit, I can see that I forgot to add in the 100 or the $1 fee per 100 targets into my calculations. So cashiering was actually spot on. This total should be 257, not 254. So I'll go ahead and update that here. And same thing here for the junior price. I go ahead and just erase all of this because I know that that is actually going to be $63 if they don't play any options. So if we come back here to cashiering, pull up my father again, we can see that if we enable the event panels and check all of the options, that his total will be $257, which is exactly what we calculated before. So I'm going to go ahead and remove him from all of the options, and I'm going to click remove. And so if we come back down to the bottom here, we can see for our final 3 events, you should have a grand total of 331. Corrected, that would be 334. And then our junior price is going to be $87. So I'm going to just write that down here in the corner. Junior, 87, junior. So we'll double check that here in just a second. So now if I put him into the last 3 events, select all the options, we should have a total of $218. So when I went ahead and pulled him back up, I came up with a grand total of $335. I missed a $1 per 100 fee, so we are spot on. So this number actually should have been 335. So cashiering is correct. So I'm going to go ahead and clear all the options, and I'm going to clear him from all of his squads as well. So I'm going to mark him as not paid. Say that the total shown below is correct. My printer's going to kick on. I'm going to close out, go into Master Edit, pull him up, and then I'm going to go ahead and put him into a junior. Oops. Into a junior. Click Done. This way, when I pull him back up and mark him as paid for these 3 events, it'll come out to $88. So it's spot on with our discounted rate for our juniors. I'm going to go ahead and close out of him in cashiering. Go back to squatting. And once again, put him on squad 50. And add him on all 3 events. Close out of that. Edit. Pay, pay, pay. $63 if he selects one option in any of these. And we hit the recalc button. You can see that he jumped up to full rate. But if we uncheck the Lewis and hit the recalc button, he'll jump back down to his discounted target rate. And then the last thing that we're going to do is, since he was just test shooter, we're going to go to shooter, delete shooter, and we're going to double click on him and say delete. And now he's been removed from the shoot like he never existed. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at support@shootingsportsoftware.com or call us at 1-801-396-7800. If you like that video, hit the thumbs up button. If you'd like to see when we post new content, hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to receive notifications on when we post new videos, hit the bell icon. Thanks for watching.